Great, thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the second, actually, webinar in the 2022 series of the Insights Online. Today's speaker is Bertie van Veek. Bertie is a part of the Miller Insight Group, the Global Insight Group, and today he's going to be looking at the subject of enabling focus. Do use the chat box as we're going along for questions, and I will be putting them to Bertie at the end. And there will also be a follow-up email with links to many bits of research that Bertie's going to mention. Bertie, over to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you very much for joining me on our, now the second session of 2022. We're here to talk about enabling focus. So I'm going to start off with the very best news you'll probably hear today, is this is only 45 minutes long. So hopefully I'm going to give you back an extra 50 minutes at the end of this talk, where you can take a break and be able to focus on what else it is you need to do today. So I am part of the Herman Miller group, the Miller group. This is a bit of Miller research that I will be sharing with you. There's quite a lot of information here. As Mark mentioned, all of the links will be emailed to you, not the slides as you will see them, but all the data points and all the research that I will be quoting will be sent over to you. Mark did post a little link earlier, and if you can do that again, Mark, I would really appreciate it. The next speaker, which I would strongly recommend you join, is Dr. Andreas Hofbauer. He's going to talk about organizational networks and how to improve it, how to strengthen it. It's really fantastic news. I spent 3 days of insights with him. It's really something that I would recommend you don't miss at all. But what I would like you to do right now, just to make sure that you all can see the chat function and know that it works, I want you to think by yourself and just write down in the chat box what actually breaks your focus. What happens in either an office or in a home that distracts you? And just write something. If you want to participate, just write that for me in the chat box. Make sure you write it to everyone, just so we can get a bit of ideas. I see coworkers, people's, team chat, pings, emails, a lot of pings, food, sunlight, and more people, emails popping up. School run distracts me. Quick chats, temperature, I've seen that quite a few times. Notifications, noise, live, exclamation mark, more people, more movement, more noise. Zoom calls, don't we get enough of those? Absolutely fantastic. We get so many ideas. Thank you very much for putting those in. I see they're still going on. But yes, all of these things actually influences our ability to be able to focus. So I'm going to jump straight into this talk. If my notepad is going to show, just 1 second. It's not working. There we go. So let's jump into enabling focus. So the idea around this, and the point I was trying to make with you, writing down all the things that might affect you either at home or in the office, is the fact that we all have a different experience. One of the biggest worries I have a lot of the time is, because someone might spend a lot of time in the office, they think that they know everything that there is around the office and that everyone has the same experience as they do. It's the same with the home office, and specifically with a lot of leadership I run into, people go, it's a fantastic experience and I can focus and I can get a lot of work done. But that isn't necessarily the case. In our kind of global research, where we had 22,000 respondents to our online working from home tool, we found that 58% of people said that focus and productivity were the two biggest things that they were struggling with when they were working from home. And that's from 22,000 respondents all around the globe. And people's home environments are different too. I'm part of the 28% of people globally who shares their same workspace with their partner. And I'm in a 1-bedroom flat in London. We sit right across from each other. For us to focus, we have to plan our days very well, as you can imagine. For some of you, you might have the same experience when you have to plan who can have a call when, who moves to the bedroom, who has to still can keep the main desk and video call area. all of this needs to be planned out. But the idea around this is our experiences are different, and we have to understand that not everyone has the same impact or same level of focus in the different environments that we provide or expect them to be able to work in. Now, this presentation was created in 2019. Luckily for us, it's even more relevant now than it has been even pre-pandemic. A tech company asked us, how can you help us enabling focus in the working environments that we are in? If you're interested more in finding out around working from home, we have a whole separate talk on that. Feel free to drop us an email where we cover specifically what is the best way for remote teams to succeed, how to do self-care, and a great 6-point plan on what to do when you're working from home. We also have some videos to describe that in a shorter version to give you a bit of advice on what to do when you're working from home. But we understand within Herman Miller that people come first, and it's all about creating balance and choice. That's really important for us. Those two words I can't emphasize anymore. We accomplish this by offering a variety of settings which best supports focus and collaborative work, not the one or the other, but really specifically supports both. And just a quick reminder, if you do have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat box. Mark will be monitoring it for me, and he'll try and ask them all right at the end. So what does a lack of focus actually cost your organization? And luckily, I'm going to be sharing with you some detailed data and real numbers of the actual impact on your organization. But Gensler wrote in an article that workplace strategies that sacrifice individual focus in the pursuit of collaboration will result in a decrease of effectiveness of both. So just the pursuit of one at the expense of the other will actually mean that both are not doing as well as you were hoping they would. Focus is kind of often a matter of your physical wellness and planning. If you can imagine, if you had a fantastic, great night's sleep, your ability to focus is much better. And with planning, it can be trying to decide what kind of white noise is going to be in the background. Is it music? Is it sitting in a cafe? Is it colleagues? Is it no one? All of that also plays a really big impact on it. But a study from Udemy kind of gave us a significant more insight into what is the actual impact of distraction. When we look at the numbers, it shows that 70% of people working worldwide feel that they are being distracted when they go into a working environment. Now that is most of us, which I find really quite shocking. 16% of us actually feel we're distracted all the time. Now, maybe you're joining this call because that is you, but that's really a very large number. So it's important for us to pay real attention to this subject. So a lack of focus and privacy opportunities in the workplace are ever increasing global problems that stretch across all industry types. And it can be even different within the same organization in different locations. Now, for us, firstly, what we want to do is figure out what is the challenge? How did we get here and what's at stake? So we want to identify what the actual problem is. Then we're going to look at defining the opportunity, building a workplace strategy around focus, so provisioning and creating purposeful settings. And then we want to finish off with achieving focus. So what is the actual solutions? And if, like me, you've joined any one of the kind of facilities conferences where you go to, you might think that the only solution these days is a booth, because at every conference you go to right now, there is 10 different enclosed booths saying that this is the only answer. We'll be exploring that and significantly more. So let's look at the actual challenge. We know that successful workplace design is all about the balance. It's seeking both collaborative spaces and spaces for individual work. Now, workplace culture values collaboration within open office neighborhoods, leading to lower height partitions and screening elements. And I don't want to talk badly about kind of open plan offices. you'll always hear the worst of it because most of the worst offices in the world are open plan offices. But if you look at the Leesman Index, 9 of the top 10 offices in the world are also open plan offices, but they've got significantly better variety and choice. But the problem we have is that we have budget constraints, and increased densifications have led to organizations to offer less dedicated settings for this focused work, and it's a serious problem. As workplace design moved forward, a focus on maximizing collaboration and community, basically individual work began to suffer. And we've got a really great research piece within Herman Miller, which I'll email you, that we did in 2016 to support that. But those individual focus spaces are actually dwindling. And you might find that when starting you're working from home, and then finally you had a return to work like all of us had, and then suddenly the noise levels is just too much. There's someone having a video conference right next to you, and you understand everything they're saying. You might even have an idea or an opinion about the topic that they're covering, and you cannot get your own work done. All of this was because, you know what, I didn't have the right space for me to be able to do that focus work, and the space are shrinking and shrinking. So if we look at the North American data from Coronet, in 2017, the average employee had 151 square feet per person. So 151 square feet per person. That is down from 225 square feet in 2010. So it's quite a dramatic shift in just 7 years around how much space is being taken away. Now, this is probably one of my all-time favorite bits of data that I love quoting, and pretty much most of the talks that we talk about is specifically from the Leesman Index. And if you're unfamiliar with the Leesman Index, do yourself a favor, just have a look, go and look online. They've got incredible data, some of the world's largest research pieces on how well spaces actually perform. Now, this is extremely important, and I hope you all pay really good attention to just this graph. So at the bottom, it says support for individual activities, and on the left, it says support for collaborative activities. Now, if you have an office environment that doesn't support individual activities or supports collaborative activities, left bottom corner, it is known as an obstructor office because you cannot get either of those two tasks done. But if you have an office that supports your individual activities very well, but doesn't support collaborative work, it's still known as an enabler because you're still able to get that individual work done. The real problem we have is in the left top hand corner. If you create an office that really supports collaborative work very well, but doesn't support your individual need to get head down focused work done, it is known as an obstructor office. Basically what happens is you cannot, or most people don't collaborate for 9 hours straight in a day. It might be 2 hours, it might even be 3 hours, but the rest of the time you want to do what you're being paid to do, what your job title is. It is, I need to be able to get my work done without interruptions if I need that. So that is a real problem. And of course, the best place to be is a catalyst space where you're supporting both the individual worker's need for work and focus and collaborative work. So let's just jump. Sorry, I've got a little bit far. There we go. There we go. So let's look at distractions. You all told me what your distractions were. I saw noise a lot. I saw loads of pings. I saw loads of information about people tapping you on the shoulder. A lot of these issues are constant. And most people say that the acoustical issues are the biggest issues they have when they are in the working environment. Visual also plays an effect. It's the second most biggest issue there is. But the acoustical issue is the single biggest issue people have when they are in a working environment. Now, 62% of people say that minimizing distractions in their office space is important to conducting business. Now, this research from Interface is absolutely fantastic to give us real detailed insights around what the issues are. So we know sound, the acoustical sound is a major distraction for people and stops them from being productive. Now, we also know, of course, there's a mass influx of people being on their mobile phones, loads of notifications. You out there also mentioned them. You explained how distracting it can actually be. I'm really hoping this works. There shouldn't be one notification on there. There isn't any notification on there, but I've switched all of them off. Every single one, except the one I use for my family on WhatsApp, but my life is significantly better. And the reason is we know that from the reporting from the Udemy research, it says that more than 1/3 of millennials and Generation Z spend more than 2 hours on their mobile at work, which is really a long time. So just checking their phones. So if we switch off those notifications, it can significantly help your ability to concentrate on the things that you do need to work on. I have switched off everything. I promise you, I've not missed out on anything because you still pick up your phone and go through them. But there's no notifications, there's no little dots unless I get a real WhatsApp message. But these are the two elements that are most distracting. So from the research, we know that 69% of workers report that acoustical noise negatively impacts their concentration levels, their productivity, and their creativity. Now, those are a lot of things. It's both the concentration levels and productivity, and then, of course, added in additionally, it's your creativity. In a recent study, the loss of visual privacy was the second complaint from employees in the open office environment. So we still need that. We still require some kind of visual privacy when we are in that working environment. So workplace distractions can damage employees' morale and retention. So organizations who fail to make simple, positive changes to the office environment can be perceived as kind of negligence, as it directly has a negative effect on employee engagement. So workplace distractions are troubling for both the current and future employees, because from the screen you can see there, 50% revealed that noise levels would impact their decision to actually accept a job, to decide whether I actually want to come and work for you. 50% say if the noise level is too high, I might not choose to come and work for you. Whereas 5% of people say they would consider leaving an organization just based on a too high noise level. So the big question we want to know is the cost. What is the actual cost of distraction? So if we start at the high level, we know that 90% of executives see employee productivity as critical to their kind of financial performance. And it's obvious, it should be. But only 40% understand the link between noise, distraction, and productivity. And that's a really big difference. So let's look at the numbers and let's look at a deep dive, and hopefully I will get a little bit of a shock value here too. So let's look at the very first statistic, and it gives you the report right there. So distraction occurs every 11 minutes, and it takes 20 to 25 minutes to regain your focus after a small distraction. Now, this is quite terrifying, and if your phone's going off right now and you're looking at multiple other emails and your computer's doing another ping and there's another Slack or another Teams thing popping up, this gives you an idea of the power of what it has over you, how much it can actually distract you from the one task that you need to focus on to be able to get that done. Because that brings us to the Plantronics Calculator, which they did with the University of California and the Oxford Economics Study. And they combined all of this, and you can do this online too. We can add a link to it. But it says the distractions can cost up to $18,000 per employee per year. Now, how you get to this number, and that's the real question, is let's do a deep dive. So if you want to calculate the annual cost of distraction based on, say, the currency, the number of employees, and their hourly wage, you can quite easily get to the number. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the US say that the average person makes $49,000 a year or $25 an hour. Now, with the calculation at the top, that means the average person is losing 720 hours in a year. So just from these distractions, we lose 720 hours. That multiplied by the $25 gives you the $18,000 per employee that you and your organization loses just based on average distractions. So this is extremely important. The numbers are there to back up that we need better training, we need a better understanding of what distracts us, and the real power of what happens if we dedicate time to be able to focus. Now, 63% of employees say they lack quiet space for focused work, which has a negative effect on their productivity, their satisfaction, and their well-being. And you can add in there things around engagement, attraction, retention. All of these things have a direct impact on how people feel if their space doesn't allow them to focus. So let's look at defining the opportunity. So we're going to look at purposeful settings. So the right setting in the correct location, and I'm going to reiterate that specifically in the correct location, because just think about it. If someone's working at a cluster of 6 workstations and they've got a phone call to make, another Zoom call, as some of you complain that you have too many, if I have to book a room on the floor above, walk all the way over there, go up a staircase, go find another space, and everything else is fully booked, I'm just going to have that call right there. So the correct location is absolutely key. And then proper provision for the right tools for people that need them. So we need the right tools in the right place. So let's look at purposeful settings. So opportunities at the landscape level, providing dedicated focus settings. So on the landscape settings, where do I put dedicated spaces where we know people have the ability to go and focus? When they go into that area, you know they're not going to be interrupted. Everyone understands through the design, through the landscape of that space, that that is a space for focused work. And then proper provisioning, opportunities at a settings level, so selecting the appropriate work tools, the materials, the accessories to support that focused work, and also what's unique to that organization and how they work and how they interact within the environment that they're in. So we've just here got a quick example of a space that was just redesigned to try and improve the level of focus spaces with one of our clients. So in the previous space, they had 258 desks. This space has 236 desks, but the previous space only had 22 focused settings, whereas with this one, it has 54 dedicated focus settings. And importantly, with the color schemes, you can see it's all spread out where there's levels of focus dedicated to settings. So high, medium, and low. And then very importantly, desk to dedicated focus settings is a 1:4 ratio, which is perfect for this specific client and their needs of what they wanted. So strategically designed landscape will offer users the appropriate settings they need for focused work. And the idea here, again, I need to reiterate, is there's absolutely no one size fits all. Levels of focus here, examples of reach varieties of focus settings, and they're all strategically located. It's privacy on demand. You get privacy if you need it, not because you're a manager, not because you're an executive or you're a senior. All of us need time to be able to do head down focus work without interruptions. And the choices are available in here in this example. So Giving individual work points and group settings the right tools to support focus-based activities. The right tools, different height screens, different monitors, depending on what you need. Do you need to be slightly close to everyone, some screens hidden away, completely a barrier further away? Group settings also provided the level of enclosure and privacy as a strategic decision based upon the requirements of the teams that use that specific setting. So what is that team's requirement? What do they need? How much head-down focus work do they need to be able to do without interruptions? And what supporting spaces do they need within that environment? So let's look at how we actually achieve this goal. Now, I'm going to show you some examples. I'm not going to go into any products. I'm not going to give you any product names or any product specific details, but I'm just going to show you some images, give you some insights. And basically in the next few slides, I will break things down into individual work points that are semi-open and enclosed. And then I'm going to show you group settings that are semi-open and enclosed, all to help you achieve better focused work. So the very first one is individual work points semi-open. And this is, I mean, we work with some fantastic designers like Bertie and Bibisek, and they found that people actually get their best work done on planes, on trains, in cafes, and these spaces create a social buzz around a person without distracting them. So how come if I'm sitting in whatever your favorite coffee shop is, there's a lot of noise there, there's buzz, but it doesn't distract me? That's the whole idea around this. So levels of focus, we got screens, we got work tools, and display units can reduce distractions. So you're semi-open. So in this environment, you still want to have a bit of noise around you. You want to be able to be connected to the people around you, but you are also doing head down focus work. Just another quick example within the same space. If you look at the left-hand side, it clearly indicates, you know, I'm semi-open. I'm doing focus work, but I still want to be kind of in the buzz. I kind of want to be around this environment. I want to hear what's going on, but I want to do a head down focus work without interruptions. So let's look at individual work points fully enclosed. And of course, the need for these are so important right now. What happens when, as you all said, you have to do multiple Zoom calls in a day and you are in that office environment? Where do I go? Because for a lot of people that we've seen is the meeting rooms get fully booked. And then where do I stand? Where do I go to? Do I sit around everyone else? And if it's not good enough, I'll just actually stay at home. So the booths you see on screen are very popular, enclosed rooms with partitioning, glass, where you can still feel kind of open, but you know you're not going to distract anyone around you, and you are able to focus within that environment. So levels of enclosures, users may want to remain visibly connected to their neighborhoods, or select a setting that's completely immersive. So you have confidential discussions in this space. Focus settings that also offer full acoustical privacy should be considered for every single landscape. So let's look at the group settings that are semi-open. So the whole idea around this is you want to remain connected to your team, but you still want to be able to get that group setting and group work done where you are all focusing together. During collaboration sessions, semi-open group settings can allow a team to remain in close proximity and be visibly connected to other people in their neighborhood. Impromptu collaboration, so these kinds of settings can encourage impromptu collaboration and ideation sessions just by proxemics, just by how close they are, allowing you to be able to get that focus group work done. Just another quick example. So let's look at group settings fully enclosed. So from formal to basically informal, where the teams require more formal conference layouts or informal lounge style arrangements, these settings allow for energetic and lively engagements that won't distract others around them. Content and data privacy, of course, is extremely important. You want to cover a topic where you don't want to hear the people around you. Fully enclosed group settings that have been provisions with screening elements will afford the most protection for sensitive content and data. And then just another good shot around another one of these great settings that are group settings, but fully enclosed, of which we're seeing significantly more requests to be designed, where you can modify the whole space the way that you want to on that specific day, changing maybe every hour, maybe every few hours, but just giving you the options to be able to do what you want within an enclosed environment. So why? So what's the benefit of reducing workplace distraction? And I've got the numbers pretty much right up there. 57% of workers are more productive when reducing workplace distractions. 57% are more motivated to do their best. And isn't that really what we want? For me, that's a really key indicator of engagement. Do I want to deliver more? Do I like being here? Do I want to engage? Do I want to give it my all? And this is what happens when we're reducing workplace distractions. And then 49% say they are happier at work. And really, isn't that really a wonderful thing in all these times that we're in? How wonderful would it be if we can actually be even happier in the environments that we are in? And then just the last one of these, the impact of distractions, the time it takes to recover, and what qualifies as a distraction can vary significantly. And we have to take these into account. Thank you very much for that. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, if you're interested to find out more, if you want to know what the future holds around what we're seeing, how we're designing spaces of the future based on individual teamwork and community socialization spaces, feel free to get in contact. We'll also be happy to deliver this talk for you and your organization if you're interested. If you hover your camera over the QR code, you'll find a link to my LinkedIn, but we would be very happy to engage with you. And on that note, I'm the perfectly timed 8 minutes left for Mark to ask me any of the questions that you might have.
Great, Bertie. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for the questions that you are putting forward and some really great observations as well. So thank you very much. Oh, I've lost them already. Here we go. So do you think the biggest problem is not just about having available focus spaces, it's also about not having the permission to move, or that you might just not be bothered?
Absolutely. I hate to say this out loud. I spoke to a client who got a new space, and looking at what's going to happen when they return to work, I told them, what about the distractions? Because the one side of the office is beautiful kind of spaces where you can go hide, enclosed spaces, but that was just dedicated for the executives. And then I said, oh, so everyone else can use it? No, it's only for the executives. And then I asked, are they in? Well, they won't really be in. So everyone else was forced into a specific space with no permission to actually use some of the fantastic environments that they already have. So yes, that permission is absolutely paramount. It is so important to give people permission, communicate, encourage, tell them this is how we want you to use the space. These are the things that's available to you. I even see people do fantastic things like put a little plaque on the back of one of their larger rooms that's highly adaptable, so that you know how you can redesign the space. If you want to do some focus work there with your team, if you want to break into other spaces, all of the options are there because we give you permission, because we just put a little plaque on the door. But yes, we need to communicate much better and really kind of create protocols to help people understand what these spaces are for.
So Bertie, a view about the future of work regarding hybrid working, I guess. How do you see what an office is going to be designed like, where people are going to be asked to work from home and some days from the office? How's this going to impact working alone and collaboration?
I think there's the one thing we have to understand is the assumption that you get all your individual work done when you're at home isn't really right. And the reason around that is there's a lot of people that are too distracted when working from home, and their home working environments aren't conducive to get their work done. But teamwork has moved into your home. Like you're doing teamwork where you're on a video call. You're almost doing teamwork right now if you're writing me a question. So this has moved into the home environment. When we're creating spaces now, we have to understand that how often people are going to be in that environment. So basically, how many people are truly going to be in that space? In the office environments that we create, we understand that people need great spaces for individual work. So head down focus work without someone having a video call right next to you. Wonderful team collaboration spaces for longer team activities, as in not the great off-site meeting, but the great on-site meeting. As in Sarah's going in, James is going in, I'm also going to go into the office. How can we work as a team when we're all in? So better supported, more whiteboards, better teams landscapes is so important. And then you need wonderful community spaces with the permission to use it as long as you want. Community socialization spaces, that key bit where we get that social connection, where I can sit with others, grab a cup of coffee, connect with them as long as I want within that environment. Those are the three key spaces that if I have to summarize it down and kind of refine it, that what we're looking at. And the home working environment, this is about being smart. I find that in many cases, managers are the biggest issues. You get senior leadership buying in, and then it filters down and then gets stuck. Because you don't need someone overlooking your shoulder every 5 minutes to see whether you've moved your mouse, because that's also not great management. So we need better training for people to understand you're a human being, you're working at home at certain days that works for you and the organization to be able to have a successful future.
Great, thank you. Jeannie makes a good point. Is there more distraction at home or in the office? And also that she also makes the point that sometimes in the office distraction is inevitable, especially for those that have no choice but to come into the office where they can't work from home.
And that on that last point, that's the real worry we get when we see spaces being designed for collaboration only, when not everyone has a fantastic working from home experience. So you're basically guaranteeing that people that go into those environments will always be distracted. And I just showed you what the cost of that would be. So the environments that we create needs to cater for that. They do need to deliver that. And then just, of course, homeworking is homeworking. The experience is different for everyone. For those that have got a great experience, it's fantastic. But again, we do need to create the balance. As long as you got a good balance and making sure that it actually works, then it works together.
Thank you. Great observation from Mark. Mark, thank you for this. Mark Owen, creating the environment's only one aspect of this shift in working practice. We should not lose sight of taking the users on a journey and defining the etiquette and behavior in the new environment. And I think we were talking about this earlier, Bertie, that actually you can be in a group but still work privately if there's an etiquette and behavior rules.
Absolutely. And even in our space, in Mark and I are close to our London office, and we like going in. As soon as we're allowed to go back properly, we'll be in there, because there's so many environments, so many areas where if you sit there, people know that you're doing focus work, but you want to slightly listen in. If you sit over there, it is don't disturb me. And they're scattered, there's variations. And your understanding of those spaces is so important. But for many organizations, when you do this for the first time, communication is absolutely incredibly key. Explain to people what the space is for, explain to them how to use it, encourage them to engage that, encourage them to engage their teams. Even I've seen things like people expect Fridays to be an absolute dead day. And it can happen within organizations. Whereas if you encourage some kind of excitement, a reason for people to go in, there's a brunch set up and there's a wonderful new team activity, then that day can actually become a popular day to say for your team at a time that suits you. So there's loads of initiative around this, but great communication, planning, the human element around it is so, so important.
Bill makes a really good point that sometimes a distraction can be a break.
Yes.
But actually, and in fact, I know some of the research that we did shows that some people only take a break and move away from their desk or whatever when they need to go to the restroom, which is kind of scary. But sometimes a distraction is a good break. What do you think about that?
And the funny thing is, even if you think about some of our spaces that we have, if you sit in that specific space because there's so much choice, you expect to be distracted. You expect someone to come by because realistically, I do want someone to say hello, how you doing? What did you watch last night on TV? How are the kids? How's the dog? What's going on? Rather than just seeing it on a screen again. But that's what environments and well-designed spaces allow you to do. Whereas the choice of where you sit automatically will tell you, you know what, I'm okay with that. I'm open with that. And allow you to focus in the way that you need to focus.
Thank you. Jacco makes the point that moving from a traditional office to the new office with the various settings is very exciting to design. But some employees are reluctant to use the new space as they're not familiar with how to use them. Is it a facility management task to use these correctly? Is it the designer's work? Whose responsibility is it?
It's everyone's, especially even senior leadership. Like I would take, if I can, the CEO and put them in the space where no one's sitting and say, you sit there, pull people in, engage with them, show them that they can use this environment. And just remember, quoting one of our other speakers, is we're in perpetual better mode. And the idea is if something isn't working, you change it. If you create an environment and you find that there is some dead space, it's not working for you, change that environment. But you do need great communication. I would work with marketing. I would communicate exactly what's happening. I would see it as a promotion rather than a list of rules. And that's the big thing. You don't want to go, don't do this, or don't do this, or don't do this. There's other ways around that, but encourage people to own the environments that they are in.
Nigel makes an observation that you and I have discussed. Most curious and ironic issue is emerging that when people are in an office and they come together for a meeting and there are a few participants remoting in, almost everyone chooses not to meet in one room and they're all remote in somewhere in that office in the building. It's a new challenging for balancing open and focused spaces, because I guess the problem is that people will be talking on a conference call in an open space. And we talk much louder on a conference call than we do even a phone.
And I mean, with those meetings, there's a lot of good information around creating co-located protocols, because the future will be potentially half of your team or a third of your team either being in the office or out of the office. So for those team meetings, if you are in the office and a few of you are in and you would like people to be in, you can send a note saying it would be nice for you to be in that environment. The one thing that I do want to ask you that is, if you book a room and you say those that are in, if you can make it, make sure that your laptop is open. Because what happens is you have 6 people that join online and the 8 people in the room just use one camera. And then when someone speaks, no one else online knows what's going on. So if you're in that space, leave the big camera on, but also put your laptop camera on so that everyone has a good experience and that they engage with you when you're within that environment. There's a lot of really good rules that you can follow to ensure that you have a much better process for working with remote teams. But it's great to have people face to face in those environments too.
A great question from Hannah. How important is it for workers to be able to choose their own workspace? And then another question, which is kind of related, do you think trust plays a big part in all of this?
I mean, that probably answers your own question. Yeah, trust is absolutely key. I think we're past the point of accepting specifically a management style of, I don't trust you, you have to be here at this time, you have to do that, because people are voting with their feet. And there are more options available now for people to work the way that they want to work. So you better kind of get with the program or you will be left behind. But variety is key in this, not just there's a bunch of options and then not being able to choose it. Because there's nothing that's worse than creating a beautiful space with loads of options and then no one feeling that they have the right to be able to use these different environments. So you have to encourage, make sure that people feel free that this is their space. They can use it the way that they want to. So yeah, trust is right at the top of the agenda.
I'm just going to read a couple of observations that don't necessarily need your comment, but ideally, the best work environments are designed in collaboration with those that will use them, prototyping and trialing different spaces and facilities. And I just wanted to highlight that because that is really important. Nigel uses the term privacy in proximity with permission. In other words, it's that behavior and protocols around it. Someone else says, yeah, we need the right space to suit the right task, whether that's collaborating or focusing. And there was one other, and someone else mentioned that the challenge with enclosed spaces currently is we also need good ventilation. So that's something that we need to consider. I know it's something we've talked about as well.
Yeah, and I mean, there's loads of information around ventilation. Other things is movement. Simple thing that we've implemented is meetings are 50 minutes long. So if a meeting is 50 minutes long, you're not overriding one meeting and then starting stress another meeting. You have time to take a break. You have time to get up, get more oxygen to the lungs, blood circulation through the body, use the restroom, get a cup of coffee, get a tea, get some water, come back and be more present, more focused, more relaxed for when you start your next meeting. So a simple change can have a really big impact on how well you feel you're able to manage your day. So I strongly recommend, as an organization, look at kind of switching your meetings to 50-minute long meetings. They have the same result, you just have more time. And none of us need any more meetings in our diaries, do we?
Yes, and an answer to a question, I'm going to say, will engaging a workplace consultant solve some of the issues? Yes, it will. All that upfront strategy is really, really important and does make a difference. And Bertie, I want to thank you for a great session. Everyone, do feel free to put your thanks in the chat box. That's how we do applause these days. As you leave, you will be taken to a website. It will say you're in an external website. That's just a website that gives you an opportunity to give us some feedback. For Bertie, just decides whether he keeps his job or not. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. There will be a follow-up email that we will send to you. It'll have lots of links and details on the research that Bertie has shared. And if you want us to run any sessions for you, please do let us know. And just to remind you, we have some upcoming events and the link is in the chat box. Do click on that link and go to it and register for our next events, which are really broad and varied. There's about 4 or 5 more planned. Be really great if you could join us. Thank you for taking your time. Bertie, thank you for a great session.
Thank you very much, everyone.